Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending where you're located, and welcome to our May Jazzit with Java. We are happy you could join us today in Calgary, and a special shout out to those in Edmonton for joining us today in Calgary. I won't mention anything about the fact that we beat you in game one yesterday. Exciting game. I'm your host, Lori McGurran, and it is my pleasure to welcome Mike Chu, who will be leading us today. Mike will start with the good stuff, which are a few handy Jazzit tips, and later serve up what's fresh to highlight some of our recent changes. Let's get started, Mike. Over to you.
Thank you, Lori. I was thinking we should have worn our jerseys today, but that might have been too much.
Maybe
okay, so as Lori says, we're going to get into the good stuff. Quick poll question. We're going to look at a lot of what's new and have a Q&A, and then finally topics for the future. Okay, so into the good stuff. We're going to talk about rounding, printing on smaller paper. So if something doesn't fit into financial, quick update on CAS 315, and then moving up to Caseware 2021. So here we go, rounding tip. Now, we've talked about rounding in the past, and it keeps coming back, and there's new ways and new problems people encounter. So we thought we'd bring this one and add this to our collection of all the ways we can have trouble with rounding. So it says here, please do not choose an account to round to if you've overridden the calculated value, or rounding will not work. And we've seen that a few times. For example, in the statement of cash flow, somebody doesn't like the number that's coming in from the trial balance, goes in and enable edit and decides to change the number to something else, and then they've got that account set for rounding. And what they're finding is rather than going from disabled to enabled, they're going from disabled to recalculate. And I thought what I would do here is in my statements, I'm just going to go down to the income statement here. And right now you can see that I'm actually rounding to bank charges. And what I've done here is I've set the bank charges to be an input cell. Now that's easy to see, and quite often people don't do that. They don't make it an input cell. So you have no idea that in fact somebody has actually overridden the calculation. So I'm going to do that. I'll change the number that's in here. Okay. We can see obviously it's overridden.
Hey,
but
Mike.
if it was, yeah.
There we go.
Ahead.
Sorry about that. It didn't look like the screen had changed there. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's a bit of a delay. I see that too. So yeah. I've overridden this number here, and I'm going to try to turn the rounding on. And what you'll see is we're going to go from disabled to recalculate. So we never actually get into enable mode. And quite often you would not see a shaded cell. You'll see sort of this situation, and you'll have no idea why that's happening. Now you have a couple of options here. One is choose a different account to round to. If you want to leave this statement and choose a different account to round to, it should be able to round. It's just not able to adjust this one because it's no longer calculated. It's actually just got a number jammed right into it. So if I remove the override and I'm just right clicking on the cell to put it back to just being calculated. And I now notice I have to actually turn the rounding off, because what that does is release whatever the difference was at the time we enabled it, and then enable it. We should be able to enable this properly, and we can now. So one choice is to reload the statement. If you don't know whether something's been overridden, make sure you save your statement before you reload. That way you can come back out if you want to not keep the changes. Or just choose a different account to round to. And if that other account is not overridden, then we won't have a problem. We should be able to enable the rounding. All right. Now this is a good one. And Lori discovered this, and we were so excited we had David actually do a video on this. So on our YouTube channel, I believe the last video we posted is talking about this. Now we have a situation here where a page is on legal size paper rather than letter, but we only have letter size paper in our printer. So we want to actually reduce the size of this page when we print. Now, the way we're going to do that is we're going to go into the division example file. I'm going to just close the statements up here, just to make sure that's closed. And let me go back into the file. 1 second here. Okay, so here's our statements. We have a page there that's on legal size paper right now. So what we're going to do is first print this to PDF, okay? So in our slides, what it's showing here is that we want to print this to PDF, and then we're going to be able to scale the pages from the PDF, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is add a PDF to the document manager really quickly. So the way we do that is, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, is we can use the Caseware print to PDF and select that we want to add this to the document manager. So here's what we're doing. We're going to right click here on the statements. We're going to choose Save as PDF File, and we're going to make sure that this is checked off. Add to Client File and Document Manager. I didn't know we could do this. It's pretty cool. So I'll click OK. So it generates the PDF and it puts it directly on the document manager. It's going to put it right below where we are right now. So here we see it generating the PDF, okay? And then adding it to our document manager. So you see it just appeared right below there. How cool is that? So let's open that up. So here's our PDF. Now, right now, if we look at this PDF and we just click through the pages here, you can see that we do have those pages at the bottom. There's two of them that actually would print on wider. You see how we're transitioning the page size here. So this page and this one normally would go on legal size paper. I don't have legal size paper. So now in the PDF, when we go to print, so I'm going to go File and go Print. Okay, you'll see there's an option here, and I'm going to wait for the dialog box to show up on our screen. There it is. We see there's an option to shrink oversized pages. That's the critical piece here. So when we print, and we could be printing to the printer, or we could print another PDF out of this, but it's going to shrink the pages. And we see it actually. If I move to the very last page here, I'm just going to scroll all the way over to page 16, okay? Notice that this has been scaled to 76%, and you can see that it now fits properly on letter size paper. So we could PDF it again to get those all on there, or we could send it to the printer, and we now have that page scaled to fit properly on the page, which I think is terrific. All right, thanks for discovering that, Lori. That's pretty cool. I think we can close that up. And let's go back in here. So when we open the PDF, you will see different size pages still, because it printed it out just like it would on the printer. But then we see there's an option here to shrink the oversized pages, which will get us all on letter size pages. Okay, nice and easy. And there you see it has scaled that one page to fit. And we're on to our next topic. That wasn't too hard, right? Okay, so the next topic is the dreaded CAS 315 checklist. So if you're doing audits, you know that there's a big change coming for the audit programs and checklists, the forms. So what I've done here is we have a screenshot of what's currently on NOSHA. And we've highlighted this area talking about what's new and updated CAS 315 forms. So if you've been in NOSHA, you've noticed that there are now two areas for practice aids. There's practice aids 315, so effective in December, and practice aids. So the forms that are out right now for our audit are what you would find under practice aids. We are currently updating our product, so we will have this ready by the fall for the practice aids CAS 315. Now notice in this highlighted paragraph below, it says that CPA will be fully integrating the new checklist in the fall of 2022. So we plan to release that when CPA has integrated this into the PEG. When they integrate it into the PEG, they're also going to be releasing samples of completed forms. So that's also a very useful tool, obviously, when you're doing these engagements. So just as a little update, we are making good progress on it. We will be on time for the fall. So pretty much whenever CPA decides to release, you can expect to see our checklist shortly around that time. Okay, so the next thing that's happened, and it's happened this month, is all of our products on our website are now on Caseware 2021. So if you haven't moved up out of 20, now's the time to do it, okay? That means that you'll need to move up to Caseware 2021 and make sure that you have patched your Caseware desktop, Caseware working papers, to build 152. If you're not sure what version of Caseware you're running, just in Caseware, click on File and go down to Help. you'll see, first of all, up here, I'm in 21, up on the logo there. You can also see it down in the version, but notice that we're on 152. So there was a patch applied to Caseware 2021. If you're on an earlier version, just visit Caseware's support area, and you can download the update to patch your Caseware. Now, remember to open all your master files, your Gen Master, your Full Master, your Farm Master, whatever masters you've created in Caseware 2021. It will prompt you to convert the file to that format. So do that. Also do that for your resource center. So if you're the administrator, open your Calib in 21, convert it. Open your Farm Lib, convert it into Caseware 2021. Now, I want to point this out. We've discussed this briefly in the past, but I want to point out this tracker just with respect to versions of Caseware, okay? So Tracker is part of Caseware Working Papers. Under File, if you go down to Tracker, you'll open up a separate application, a window. Probably a lot of you are using Tracker because it does a lot. It's very useful. What I've done is I've created my own view in here, and I've basically said, go look in my directory where I have all my client and master files, and I'm now organizing it, and I'm just organizing it by clicking on the headings here. So notice that one of the columns I have open here is version. If you don't see version, just right click on one of the column headings and go under show, and you'll be able to bring that out. You can actually decide which columns you want to have. You can reorder the columns and change these columns around. So I'm displaying my version column. Now, I can see right now which files are in 20 and which are in 21, okay? What's really nice is I can right click on any of these files and convert them. So I don't even need to load it, open it, or any of that. I can do it right there. Now, what's really nice about this is if I click on one of them, hold down my Shift key, click on a range of them, I can right click and I can do a batch convert, okay? So we can very quickly, let's say it's, you just got some time, you want to knock off converting, you don't want to be waiting to open these files, you can just do it right here inside a tracker. And I don't know if you knew that. If you did, great, but it certainly can be very helpful. Even if you just want to know what's been moved up, what hasn't, you can see that information inside a tracker, okay? Let me come out of there.
The nice thing too, Mike, that I saw there, one of the options was the ability to compress or uncompress groups of files too.
Yes, exactly. And I believe that compressed Caseware file stays compressed even after it's been converted, which is really nice. It's a very nice tool. Okay. So, wow, we're moving right along. It's because we have a lot of what's new today, but we decided we'll sneak our poll question in early here. So we have a question talking about Caseview's document map. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in a moment, but if you know about it, great. So our question today is, do you like Caseview's document map? Okay, so I'll get Lori to launch the poll question here. Okay, so our options are yes, I like the feature, no, I don't like the feature, and the last one is what the heck is the document map? Okay, so we're going to leave that open for a moment here. I'll let you respond, and
we have about 65% in.
That's pretty good. Now. We'll wait a second here. Let's get at least 3/4 of us in here. So if you could just vote on this. All right. Good. That's pretty good. We're just about at 80. There we go. Okay, that's good, Lori. Why don't we close the poll?
Close the poll.
Okay.
And share the results.
And share the results.
So this is pretty consistent with what I've seen when I've connected with people online. I think most people don't know what the document map
That's
is,
great.
and so we see people trying to hide it.
Yeah, thanks for putting that one in there, Lori, because I thought the poll question should be yes or no, but we always had this other option. What the heck is the document map? So I'm glad you did that. So we can now just close that poll. And let's talk about document map for a moment here. So in a document that's quite long, and the real example here is the financial statements. This can be quite a long area. The document map is this area on the left, okay? Now the advantage to the document map is that we can very quickly navigate a long document. So if I want to go to a particular note like long-term debt, or if I want to go up to the balance sheet, I can just click in this area and go to different areas of the document. Now, in here, we do have a select the page, but you notice it only takes you to the notes. This would take you to a particular note, okay? The other thing that's going on in the document map in the financial statement that's very useful is it can indicate where there are notes available for updates available for notes or policies, okay? So when I click on admin, it's telling me, first of all, at the very top that there were updates available, and under admin, it's telling me right now that there are updates available for notes and policies. So you see that we have the attention symbol down at the bottom there. And if I click on that, it tells me that there is one note and one policy that has an update available. Now, this has a lot of notes. We could have, you know, I don't want to say hundreds of notes, but lots of notes and lots of policies. How do I find these notes that have the update and the policy? Very quickly. Well, in this dialog box, it also says that you'll see a little star in front on the prefix in the document map. Okay. So when I look over on the side here, I see there's a star here on basis of presentation. You see it in front of that. So in fact, there is an update available. We see the attention symbol. And we see there's a star on the inventory. So if I click on that, in fact, there's an update available for this policy. So the document map is very useful in terms of locating items that can be updated in the financial statement. Now, how about turning the document map on and off? In CaseView, when you click on the Home tab, you'll see there's a button over on the right there, Document Map. So if you click on it, you can turn it off, okay? And if you click on it again, you can turn it back on. So there is the ability when you're looking at any document to turn the document map on and off. Now, the thing to remember though is the next time you load the document, it doesn't remember whether you turned it on or off. It just comes back in the state for the document itself, okay? We are working on that. In the future, we plan to offer a button in our freeze frame, which will turn it on or off, and when you save it, it will be in that position. Unfortunately, the option for this is only in design mode. So for now, just click on the Home tab and click on Document Map if you want to turn it off, or Document Map if you want to turn it on, depending on whether it's on or off, okay? The other option you have here is you'll notice there's a divider between the document map and the actual document. When you point your mouse right on that divider, you can then hold down your left mouse button, or in Lori's case, the right mouse button, and drag the window over to the left or right if you want to resize that. So maybe you want it, but maybe it's using up a little bit too much real estate. You can adjust that by just dragging that over. And it does remember that sizing. So next time you open it, if you save the document, we'll keep that position. Okay, who knew that poll questions could be so much fun? So now the what's new. So we do have an update. We have posted it for download. We haven't told anybody yet though. So next week, we will be emailing administrators saying, hey, there's an update to Jazzit Fundamentals because you guys are so kind to share your time with us today, we're gonna give you the sneak peek. If you want, you can download these updates right now. We have posted them. So let's get into this and see what's new with Jazzit Fundamentals. Okay, so the first we're going to look at the engagement letter. So the engagement letter we know has an appendix, the appendix being the sample of the engagement report. There's an option in the letters to have an initials at the bottom of each page. And you can see in our screenshot here, we're highlighting that. Okay, now what we have done in here was we've added that initial option to the appendix page. It previously had stopped at the page before the signature page, and then the appendix did not have this. So I'm going to just jump into our engagement letter here. So let me just switch over here. Let's open up our engagement letter. So under formatting options, you see there's control here for client initials. First of all, if you want them to be below every individual paragraph, if we turn that on, you would see it under each paragraph. But what I want to do in this case is I want to set it to be on the bottom of each page. So under the letter format, you'll see here client initials at the bottom of each page. Now, normally it's off, okay? So we wouldn't see that. But if we set it to yes, then you'll see there's an option here to also edit what that looks like. So we could change it if we wanted to say something different at the bottom of each page. So for now, you know, I can see that it's saying here initials with an underline, but let's say we want to have it say something else. We can just edit that, okay? So I'm just going to put in here as an example name, and you'll notice that now it's saying that at the bottom of each page. So we can do whatever we want with that. So here's the first page. Here's the next page, and I'll make it small enough that we can all see it together, okay? There's the third page. There's the fourth page. Boy, these engagement letters are long. Fifth page, sixth page. So when we get to the signature page, it does not appear. Makes sense? And on the next page where we have the appendix, it is there, okay? So it's on that appendix page. Now, if you like that option, that's in a lot of our notes. So just click on Format, and you can turn on those initials at the bottom of the page or below each of the paragraphs. So the client enclosure letter. So we've had a lot of feedback over the last 6 months. And one of the things that was brought to our attention was our client enclosure letter needed a little update, especially where items requiring a signature, okay? So we've added a button now to toggle between electronic and paper in terms of how are we dealing with these documents. So let me go back here, and I'm going to go back to our letters. Let me open up the client enclosure letter. So I'm looking here under the other matters area, and I'm going down to items requiring a signature. So we have updated the list of items as well. So the list itself has been updated, but there's a paragraph now that says, below is a list of documents that require your immediate signature. These documents will be sent for electronic signature. Please sign where indicated and click on the links in the emails and digitally sign off each of the following. Or under paper is what we used to have, where you would mail or see the client, have them sign here and send back. So we are trying to get with the times, and we have the electronic option under there, okay? Okay, so notes, let's take a look at this one. So for the debt notes, so that is long-term debt, callable debt, lease obligations, notes receivable, and we have a generic loan. We have added a new paragraph type that is insertable between the loans, okay? And this is a paragraph which can go into the right area, which is normally reserved for amounts, okay? So let me show you that. I'm just gonna go back into my statements, and I'm gonna go down to the long-term debt note, okay? And you'll notice here that there's a paragraph below the first loan, which I can type as much as I like it. It'll just keep on wrapping. So if we have notes or loans with a lot of detail, we can add in these paragraphs and use them to put in as much detail as we want. How do we add these? You right click on the loan area, you go insert, and you'll see there's this new left aligned paragraph. So that inserts this here, which for some cases, as I was saying, you know, to have all the detail just going down on this left side makes for a very long note. So you wanted the option. Now, when you're in these paragraphs, so I'll just add in some text, except I can't type. Okay, if you right click on the paragraph itself, you can add in additional space, which we have in there. So if I want to tighten that up, I can do that. And notice that the space between each of the loans is also adjustable, okay? So if we don't want any space or we want wide spacing, it's adjusting the space between the loan and this paragraph. So I would recommend that if you're going to use these left aligned paragraphs, that you consider using the wider spacing, because it leaves more of a gap between these paragraphs and this loan itself, okay? So hopefully you'll find that helpful. Give us some feedback on that. If you like this idea, let us know, because we can certainly look at adding it in other areas as time allows. But it was in the debt notes that we really saw a need for this, and we've added that functionality in there. Okay, so you can see there's an example. So remember, you're going to right click, you're going to choose insert, and you're going to choose a left aligned paragraph to get one of those. Remember to use the wide spacing between the loans. If you want, you can also right-click on any of these paragraphs and set them to skip. So this might even be just text that you want to put in for yourself here. So if I set that paragraph to skip, notice that it's still here, it's still visible, but it doesn't print, okay? All these input paragraphs in notes have that ability. So if you want to add something like commentary in here, you can do that. That is not going to print, okay? And all I did was right-click, skip this paragraph. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, let's talk about basis of presentation. So we have a basis of presentation note, which is for reviews and audits. We have a basis of accounting note, which is for compilation, 4200, okay? We have updated the basis of presentation policy to have all the same items as the basis of presentation note. So usually a firm will choose to have either the policy or the note. When you change the engagement from a review or audit to a compilation, you're going to see this warning saying that this policy or note doesn't apply to a compilation. And it will also prompt you to bring in the basis of accounting note, okay? So right now in my statement, I have the basis of accounting, basis of presentation note, and I'm going to set this to being a compilation. So remember, if your end is December 14th or later, when you set this to compilation, we're already on 4200 standard, okay? So if it's before that, we're still in the old notice to reader. So in this one, because the year end is after December the 14th, when I set it to compilation, notice that it's telling me I need to replace this with the basis of accounting note. So I will delete this note. Well, let's get rid of it. So let me just right click here. I'll delete the note, take it out. Okay, it's gone. When I go back up to the report, notice that it's telling me that I need to insert the basis of accounting note. So we'll insert that. Okay, so that's bringing in the correct note, and it's warning us if we have the other note or policy sitting there. So now the basis of accounting note is here. It's available. I can edit this or add in whatever I like or use whatever's already here. Okay. Okay, so this is more of a convenience, but it's a nice one. So for the policies, some people are not aware that you can actually edit the formatting of the policy headings. We've now made that a right click right off the policy heading. So on any of these policies, and you do have to have the newer policies inserted, but if you right click here, you'll see there's a couple of key options. One is you can now add a page break above any policy. So if you didn't like that the policy was spanning pages, right, let's see a page break right above that policy, okay? Easy as that. We can also sort the policies right from here. So if we had a whole bunch of policies, we can just right click on that heading, sort it, and we can now format the policy headings. So if you want this in upper or lowercase, you want this in italics, you want this in bold or bolder italics, and whether or not it's underlined, all of that is just a right click away here, okay? You do need to update your notes menu as well. The notes menu gets updated, and it's updated so that there's now the same drop down here under the policy formatting. If you don't update your notes policy with a newer note, when you right click to go formatting, it'll just jump you up into the note settings so you can set it in there. But once you've updated your note heading, you'll be able to do this directly from any of the policies, okay? Which is nice. And updating a policy also is not going to change that setting, so that you'll be able to retain that setting on update. Okay, so some new notes that have been added. There now is a new note for retractable shares. It's found in the generic and single column note category. So we've given you screenshots. This is, by the way, the handout today, so you can download all of these. I think Lori mentioned that at the beginning. But the category there's generic and single column note. Choose the share classified as liabilities. So this will get you started on that note, so you can edit that content to your heart's content. We also now have added, under popular demand, the option to show rates and methods below the property, plant, and equipment note. So if you don't want to show this as a policy, you don't have to. So I'll just show you that. So I'm going to go down to property, plants, and equipment note. Notice that this note now has an option at the bottom. Let me close that up. At the bottom here to show rates and methods. So if I turn that on, then you've got basically the same as what you had before. So let me just drop in something here. Okay, I know it's not right, but we're just going to put something quick here. So now that can appear as part of the note. Okay, so you don't need to have policies for that. I think that was in compilation. People wanted that because they didn't want to have the policies, obviously. So now that can be on any of those significant property, plant, equipment notes. There are different property, plant, equipment notes. They all have that option on them. They can have that rate method displayed at the bottom of the note. Okay, so a new note for joint ventures and subsidiaries, KU, includes the equity and share of income. So this format is now available for equity and joint ventures. We now also have a new note for future taxes. So this note shows carrying value, tax basis value, the difference between the two, the rate, and then our FIDA liability. Okay, so in this case, and I'm going to show you this note, I have inserted that note. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting in some values here for carrying value and the tax basis. That's giving us the difference. Put in the rate, it will automatically calculate this future tax. And when this file rolls forward, these amounts are going to move into the prior year automatically. So hopefully you'll find that note to be helpful. We had a few people requesting a note basically in this format. So it is now available. This note is available in your tax notes. So it's category KT, but tax and other government remittances. That's where you're going to find that. So just up here on the screenshot, you're choosing this category, and then you're going to choose this note, option 2 for future taxes. Okay, so let's go back to the lovely compilation issues. So one of the things that came up was I want to be able to say compiled financial information on my title page and on my statement page. Okay, so what we've done is if you are set to a compilation, so I believe we did set this one to a compilation, I'm going to click here on my statement menu to view my title page. Okay, right now it says compiled financial information. You can right click and toggle this between financial information or compiled financial information. If you choose that, whatever you want in the resource center, it's going to come in as that. Okay. Also on your statement menu, so let me close the title page. On your statement menu, if you right click on this heading here, so this section heading, you can choose between compiled financial information and financial information. You will only see these menus when you're set to compilation. For review and audit, it's financial statements, okay? But here you can choose whether or not, and if you set this to compiled financial information, then this is the index to compiled financial information up here, okay? And we're going to talk about this other option. Let me go down. So there you go, right clicking on the title page, we can toggle the option. We're now going to default to compiled financial information up here, but you can set it as your preference, okay? So also on the engagement report, that's too bad we came off of this. I guess I skipped a slide, Lori. 1 second here. Yeah, so the other thing I want to show you is just on the bottom here, is that the name of that statement menu can also be changed. So right now we have index to compiled financial information. If I click the drop down, notice that now you can just call it table of contents or contents, okay? Or whatever you like. You could type in anything in here and this will now be the contents, okay? So table of contents, contents, or index, or type in whatever you like, okay? So you can now edit that area as well. Okay. So title page. Now, the engagement report. This refers more to reviews and audits where we have long reports that may not fit on a single page. If we have that, then when we have multiple pages, we need a header at the top of the next page, okay? So what we've done is updated it so it says the type of report to the, and then whatever's in, you've selected in your salutation area, okay? So even 4200, if it became a long report, notice that the 4200 report does have a salutation. So it would be up in the next page up at the top there. You may also have different kinds of letterhead associated with the second page on the report. So just keep in mind that under your report, you do have different options here. So when you want a particular letterhead or header on your subsequent page, you can set that. You can also scale the font size on your report. So if it almost fits on a page, just remember that you can set to a smaller point size on your report. So it just about gets there. Try going 9 points. You'll probably get that 1 or 2 lines that was moving on to the next page. Or you can use CaseView's new function there to be able to merge pages, which we've talked about previously as well. Okay, here's something new that we put up in the freeze frame of all the working papers, letters, and our checklists. We're updating to do that here. We call these connection diagnostics. And what I'm going to do is just open the engagement letter and show you these diagnostics. Okay, so up at the very top here, we've got these 3 green little boxes. They tell us a lot. This first guy here tells us that the financial statements have been located. They are properly included in this file. Remember, it's important to include the financial statements for fundamentals because it indicates where the Callable or resource center is located and shares that information, that path, to all the other Jazzit fundamental documents. So it's found, it's there. If we click on that, we could actually, I believe, open the statements, but I don't want to do that. This next one is JZEL. So it's saying, I have found this document in the resource center. So if we ended up with a document which had a different ID, JZEL1 or something, this would be red. It would say, I can't update because there is no sister document for this particular ID inside the resource center, but it is there. So that's good. And we are connected. Now, there's a tooltip that comes up on connected that's very important because it says to you when the administrator in your firm last updated the resource center itself, okay? So why is that important? Because you might be sitting here saying, well, my engagement letter says that it's current. There's no updates available. But if I click on connected, wait a minute, the administrator hasn't updated the resource center for 2 years, okay? You know, administrator, you need to update the resource center, okay? So we can see when that's been done last as well, okay? So there's a lot of good information going on in that connection diagnostic. Now, let's look at this first one here, this top screenshot. This is saying, I found the financial statement, but it's not connected properly to the resource center. So let's do that together. We're going to be in the financial statement. We're going to click on admin because that's where we set the path to the resource center. And we're going to break the path here, okay? So I'm going to make it so it's not properly connected. We'd have the same thing as well, though, if the resource center was safe compressed. Remember that it needs to stay uncompressed. So we are not connected to the resource center. You see that up here, not connected. When I go into the engagement letter, now it's saying I do see the financial statement, but I don't see that we're connected, okay? So if I click on the not connected, this actually opens up the financial statement because that's where we need to fix the problem, okay? So I'll just click correct the path, okay? So now we are connected. And if I go back to our letter, look at that, we are connected. Everything's fine. All right, let's go back to the screenshots. So the next screenshot, and this is the other thing that happens common, somebody has copied in or copy and pasted statements in, the identifier incremented, so it's no longer FS, it's something else. So what we're gonna do is we're going to close the statements. So let me do that, I'll get out of here, okay? And I'm going to go back to the document manager and let's pretend that we have statements, but they're not FS. So let me edit the identifier to something else. I'm just gonna make it FS1, okay? And I'll go back into the letter and notice now it's saying, hey, I can't find the financial statement, or there is no document in here with the document FS telling me where the resource center is. So these are useful diagnostics. So I am not connected. Now, I will tell you, and I won't go into it any further, if you click on not connected, you can actually set the path to the resource center for this particular document. When you do that, you can update this document and it will retain that path. it will retain that path until you actually put a statement back in, and then it will use that path. Okay, but we'll leave it at that. So we know there's a problem here. Either the FS is not in here or the identifier is wrong. And this is why we're not able to update this particular document. So we will just go back in here. Let's change the identifier. So I'm going to right click on that financial statement, and I'll change the properties here to make sure that it's FS. Notice that I have the CaseView identifier column turned on here, so I could see the problem. Okay, how did I do that? I right click up in this heading area, go show, and I've turned on that I wanted to have that particular thing. I wanted the CaseView identifier. I believe it's at the bottom there. So we wanted to see the identifier. It's not showing me because it's already turned on. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. I was going to mention that.
I see, I anticipated that.
You did.
I got it. All right. So, okay. So connection diagnostics, you're going to see that in our documents because it's very helpful to understand why can't I update this document. So loan lease calculator, I hope you're using it in your files because it calculates the interest and principal going forward. We've made a change to the loan lease calculator. So now when you say this is the payment in the loan calculator, it will figure out the amortization. So it won't ask you for a maturity date. It will just say, here's what we do to pay the loan out. If you go manual on the payment, then you can specify both the payment or, sorry, if you go, the payment is calculated, you can put in the term and it will calculate the payment for you. Hope I haven't lost you here. So let me go into a file. I'm gonna go down to the working paper. We'll walk through this together. Okay, so I'm in long-term debt and I'm in the loans. Okay, so this first loan is TD Canada Trust. I put in my payment here and I put in my maturity date. So when I go into the calculator by clicking on the ID on the right, okay, remember you can edit that, right click on it, you can make it anything, okay. Oh, what did I do here? I had broken the path to the resource center here. Let me exit that. Hang on one sec, I'm gonna try again. Oh, it's still not connected. Yeah, you know, this is the problem here, is we have broken the path here. 1 second here. And the issue is, I didn't actually open the statement again. Remember, we changed the ID. I actually have to open the statement because what that does is refresh all the links. Hopefully that'll do it. All right, so here we go. Isn't it fun when it's all live? So we are connected now. Okay, so let me go back into the loan calculator. All right, so everything's good. So now we're in this particular loan and we're saying we want to use the payment per the working paper. So this payment came right off the working paper. Notice that I can't edit the amortization period. It's based on the payment, okay? So this will then just pay this out. Not very exciting because it's paid out next year. But if I go calculate it, then I can set what I want for when this loan will end. And the payment will adjust based on this, okay? So we can either go per the working paper, which means that this payment of what you gave me will basically pay out in 28, or we can go calculated, which means that if you tell me it pays out here, then that's the payment, okay? Now, why is this important? This is important because we want to make sure that in the long-term area, that the full balance of the loan ends up either in this area or in the long-term area. And what we were getting were a payment and end date that weren't valid. So the loan was still sitting there hanging. In fact, it might go the other way where the payment was actually paying the loan off before. So you ended up with a bunch of blank lines because basically the loan had been paid out. So now it does this automatically. Now the loan calculator can calculate obviously this year, but up to 34 years into the future. If you get a loan where your payment is not sufficient to pay the loan out within that period, you'll get a diagnostic now saying, I'm not able to pay off your loan based on your payment, okay? That's important because we wanna make sure that the full balance of that loan is transferring back to the main working paper. So if that's the case, let's say for some reason you do have a loan that's 50 years, then you'll have to use a different calculator. You can enter those amounts into the working paper manually, but we do go 34 years, which probably catches most things, hopefully. Okay, it's exciting. The next item, entity referred to as. We've had a lot of requests for different names for the entity. So we've organized that into lower and uppercase. Notice there's a custom option. So where am I? First of all, I'm in the statements. I'm on the home menu. I clicked on client profile. So entity referred to as, okay? So when you leave it on default, when it's a partnership or a proprietorship, this changes automatically, but you can set it to a particular setting. Now, what I'm showing you here is that under capitalized, you will see First Nation here. So it only appears under capitalized because it's never lowercase. So if you're looking for that, just go under capitalized and choose First Nation, okay? This option will be retained when you update, and it is shared with working papers or letters, mostly letters that need that. So it would, once you set it on your home menu, the other documents will default to that automatically, okay? All right, boy, we are covering a lot of stuff today, things that have been asked for. So now we're getting into hyphens. I can hear some people going, ooh, hyphens. All right, so is it long-term or long hyphen term? All right, so in our statements, I just got somebody's attention. What, they're gonna deal with hyphens? Okay, going down to the balance sheet, and I'm looking here at my long-term debt, okay? So actually, yeah, long-term debt. So why don't I see it? There it is. Okay, long-term debt. I want this to be long hyphen term, and I don't want to have to set this over and over again when I update. I want this to have a hyphen on it. What we've done, and it finally came to me, is what is the answer to this? It looks at your mapping. So if you put a hyphen in the mapping, you're going to see a hyphen in here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Caseware side. I'm going to click on engagement, go into mapping. I'm going down to map 231. So 231 is the title for this long-term debt area. 231, okay? So it says long-term debt. I'm going to put a hyphen right in here, okay? Now, if you want to, you can hyphen in your master, and you can just update your mapping as part of copy components. So you can get this hyphen into your files pretty quickly. When I put the hyphen in there, in my statements, it's now hyphenated. So you see the hyphen, and you see the hyphen, okay? So anything that's long-term, short-term, anything like that, we are now looking at the mapping to determine what do you want there, okay? So that should address the hyphen issue to a large extent, and hopefully find that to be a helpful change. And you can see it here. So we've got long-term. So actually even the headings themselves. So go into mapping, because there is a map number. It's probably a title, but there's a title map number which will add the hyphen. So things like this can now be hyphenated based on what it's seeing in the map structure, okay? Okay, which is exciting. Now, it's all good. Updating Jazzit. There's some things we've done here to make your life easier. One of the things we've done is when we add a new document, so if you think back, we added a new document for the engagement letter, the rep letter some time ago. We went from EL to JZEL. When there's a new document and you're the administrator and you're in the JZ update, when you bring that document in now, it will automatically add it to your document manager for the resource center and the master file, okay? Previously, it would copy the file in behind the scenes, but you would have to manually add it to your document manager. Now it will do that automatically. So if I go back here and I go back into my resource center and I open up that update control, okay? So remember, this takes a moment to update because it's actually, or load, because it's actually calculating the dates of a lot of things here. So once this is loaded, what I did was I removed the envelope. It's not on my master or my resource center. I deleted that document. So when I go down into these areas here, I see I'm missing the envelope, okay? So when I click on this status button, it's now going to, and I'm the administrator, I gotta put in my administrator password, okay? So when I click on this, it's going to copy these in. Now it's saying here that the envelope will be inserted at the top of the document manager. So just like when you're copying in documents using copy components. So you can then sort that down to the position you want it. So I'll click OK. So it's going to bring these in. So you see the dates changed. It's now in. Now, what's new here is if I go up to the top of my document manager, look at that. There's the document. So now we can just drag and drop that down to where we want it. Now, in terms of where do you want it, if you go back into your Jazzit update, here's where we suggest that it goes. Doesn't mean it has to be there, but we put it in as the second item under file closing. So under file closing, if I dragged it down to here, you know, that's where we put it, but you can put it wherever you like. Now that's good for the resource center, but also the master file. So in this case, GenMast, look at that, it's right there. You can see it at the top, okay? So I can then just drag it. I'm holding down my left mouse button and just drag it down and drop it where we want it, and we're done. That's easy, that's good, okay? So adding new documents has been made a lot easier because we now put it on the document manager for you. The other change that we made was when you download the EXE now, it's actually looking for any missing working paper or letter. So previously in that EXE, it used to be only the new documents since we started, but now it's all documents. So if there's any document missing, when you open up the Jazzit update, you can do exactly what I did with the envelope, and it will bring it in and put it on your document manager for your resource center and your master file, okay? So that is, I think, a good change that we've made. Now also, step four was a bit of an interruption in the whole process. I think I closed the document, unfortunately. But step 4 was refresh dates. And what it did was it closed the document. You had to open it again. You had to unlock it. You don't need to do that anymore. So once you download your updates, it will refresh the dates automatically for you. So you can just stay right in that document, which will save you a couple of steps. Everything that we can save is a good thing. So it's showing us here now. There are also settings that when you update your statements are going to be retained, okay? So what I'm gonna do with you together is we're gonna make some changes to the signature block of the balance sheet, and we're gonna update the balance sheet and make sure everything stays put. You could also update your home menu. Neither one of those are gonna disrupt those settings. Also, everything under section format, so whether it's indented or not, wide spacing, upper or lower case, these settings are also retained. In fact, everything under headings, so anything bold, italic, or bold, uppercase, single or plural, all of that is retained when you update that particular statement page, okay? So if we go back in here, I'm going to go back up to the top. We're gonna go under signature lines. So let's set this now to manual, because what I wanna do is I'm gonna set these side by side. So we're going to change this to something custom. So here's my custom text. Okay, and click OK. Now let's print preview. So I want to show you what we have. So at the bottom of the balance sheet, we have 2 lines side by side with our custom text above. So we're going to update the balance sheet. So let's do that. Let's click on it and then, and let's update the balance sheet. So notice that these settings are not the way it is in the resource center. They would be up and down, stacked, and just with the default title. So let's update our balance sheet. So do you want to save? No, I'm not going to save. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this. By the way, the reason we prompt you for that, do you want to save, is because if you do save, you could exit without making, saving your changes, come back to the way it was before you did this update. So that's why we always prompt for that. Okay, so let's do the update. We'll wait for that. And once this is done, we're going to go back down to that balance sheet, do a print preview, and you'll notice that we're still stacked side by side. We still have our custom text. Okay, so all of that gets retained on update. Now, there are some other settings. Anything under headings also gets retained. Okay, and if I, for example, had set this to being in the long-term area, I wanted this to be lowercase, and I wanted this to be indented, and I want a heading in there. So, and I want a sub, I did all of this. I don't want to lose any of that. So when we update the balance sheet, we're not going to lose any of that, okay? So the question comes in, what if we actually do want to reset everything back to whatever's going on in the resource center? So in order to do that, at the very top of the statement, click on the headings folder. You'll see there's a reload button. So this reload button is going to set everything back to exactly the way it is in the resource center. So notice right now, if I do a print preview, see how my long-term area is? And we had those two lines that were stacked, okay? So what I'm going to do is reload, okay? So that has now reset everything, including the signature area, back to exactly the way it is in the resource center. So notice we're back to this area. Our long-term looks like this, and everything's defaulted now on our signature block, okay? So that gives the administrator the ability to bring it in as it is in the resource center, or just to keep things the way they are in here, okay? So hopefully you find that helpful. All right, hey, you know what? We did pretty good for time here, Lori.
We did.
I'm impressed.
I have a few questions here. Okay. This has to do with the long-term debt note. Is it possible to insert a page break in the long-term debt note?
You know, that's a great question, and I'm not sure. Let me go down here, and let me go down. I think
that the old way we used to do it, right, if there's no formal switch to be able to set a page break, I think you can insert one of those new paragraphs and then do shift enter.
Let me go down. Yeah, I think you could do that too, but let me just have a look here. I'm just 1 second. I'm gonna right click here, insert. No. So there is a way to do it for sure. I mean, if for example, even in here, if we insert a left aligned paragraph, right? So we could put in that left aligned paragraph, and in here, if we went shift
enter.
Yeah, sorry.
Control enter.
Control enter. Now, control enter is bringing up a little dialog box. I'm just going to click OK to that. Okay. Notice that what that did effectively put a page break in. In a lot of areas, we do have the option to insert a page break, depending on where we are. But even if we don't have the option, any paragraph, if you put in a blank paragraph and go control enter, hit enter, so hold down your control key, hit your enter key, you can insert a page break. And then what's nice is this is visible. It's even sortable. So you could sort this manually. You could move that page break, okay? But you see it. And if next year you don't need it, you can right click and delete it, okay? So always put your page breaks in like that rather than going into enable edit and sticking it in there, because then it's hidden. Nobody can find it. You can't move it. You can't delete it. Just put it in like that. So let's do it together one more time. What I did was I inserted a line. So in this case, I inserted just a left aligned paragraph. I was at the top of that. Look at that, I got a little typo there. I'm on this paragraph. I'm holding down the control key, and I'm going to hit the enter key, okay? And then click OK, and that puts it in there for us. Okay.
Now, while we're on the long-term debt note, is it possible to use Prime Plus description in there? I think
you'd have to type that in. Actually, where is the rate?
I thought it was a drop down in there.
There is a drop down, yeah, there's a drop down, yeah.
All right. Now, this one we haven't tried before.
That's always fun.
Not formally anyway.
Okay.
So this goes back to PDFing.
Yeah.
If we were to merge pages, are we able to PDF after we merge a page?
Should be able to, because when you merge the pages, that basically is then saying we're going to print. So whether we're printing to a hardware or actual PDF shouldn't matter, right? Because the operating system sees PDF basically as a printer, right? So should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think that's all of the.
We're 4 minutes into overtime here.
We're 4 minutes into overtime anyway.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of other questions that aren't really related to some of the topics that we've been doing today.
Sure.
So we can leave those after. If I might ask, in regards to the Prime Plus, is it possible to have that in the actual working paper itself, or is it just the note? I think it's just the note, because
it's in the note, and the issue there is we actually need a rate for the calculator. So and you know, the rate you're putting in there is more the future rate for, like, we're just going to estimate for future payments. But you could, in the note itself, you can indicate Prime Plus, and even in the details, because there's a field there where you can say, you know, secured by, you could put Prime Plus in there and leave that other field blank if you wanted to. Yeah.
Well, that was a lot to cover today, Mike. Thank you to everyone for hanging in. We've gone over time. And thank you everybody for the questions. Again, thank you for joining us today. Our next Java will be June the 16th, and we look forward to seeing you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.